Hi, this is Ms. Hancock. Today we're going to be talking about absolute value and additive inverse. The standards that this lesson goes along with is 7.NS.1a and 7.NS.1b. We're going to talk about some vocabulary words first, so let's go ahead and look at those. So the vocabulary words that are important for this lesson would be absolute value, and that is a number's distance from 0 on a number line. And the important thing that you know is that the word distance tells you that the answer will always be positive. We're going to talk about additive inverse, where we have two numbers whose sum is 0, and sum is the answer when you have addition problem. The two numbers are called zero pairs. An example of that would be -4 plus 4. It's sum because it's adding, and then you have opposites, -4 and +4. And the sum of that would be 0. And also we're going to talk about integers. Integers are whole numbers and their opposites, so this whole lesson is based on operations with integers. So let's go ahead and look at the next slide and do a little bit of work here with absolute value. So on absolute value, the symbol that we use is two straight lines, and it usually will have a number on in the between the two lines. So we're going to work a few problems. So if I have the absolute value of -3, what would be the solution to that? Well, remember, absolute value is the distance from 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot on -3, and I'm going to count the spaces to get to 0. So that would be 1, 2, 3. So the distance from -3 to 0 is 3. So we'll write that answer right here. So the absolute value of -3 is 3. Now, but what if we had the absolute value of 3? So think about it. Remember, we're doing the distance from 0, so I'm going to put a dot on the 3. And I'm going to count how many spaces it is to 0. So that's 1, 2, 3. And so what I'm seeing there is that value +3 is also 3. Remember, we're not looking for opposites. We're looking for absolute value, which is the distance from 0. Let's do one more. So if I have the absolute value of, let me clear the screen. So if I have the absolute value of 6, I would go and put a dot on 6. And I would count how many spaces it is to 0. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the solution to the absolute value of 6 is 6. So now let's look, what is the absolute value of -6? Again, we're going to grab a dot and we're going to put it at -6. We're going to count the spaces to 0. And when I counted those, that gave me 6. Now, I need you to remember, absolute value is always positive because we're talking about distance, the distance from one location to another, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at additive inverse. So we're going to get that screen pulled up. And so we're looking at additive inverse, two numbers whose sum is 0. The two numbers are called zero pairs. And remember, sum is, we're going to add it up. Okay, so let's look at the first problem. So this is what I have. I have 4, I need to grab a pen, bear with me, 4 plus -4. Now, I don't want you to get those parentheses confused with absolute value. Absolute value has very straight lines. And this around the -4 is a parentheses, And the reason we use the parentheses here is to separate the plus sign and the negative 4 so we don't get confused. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to set this up, and we always start at 0, so I'm going to put my line right there at 0, and I'm going to go to my first term, and my first term is 4. This is our first term. So I'm going to go to 4. And now I'm going to look back at my problem. I've got to 4, and now it says plus -4. That negative tells me to go left, and it says go left 4 times. So I'm going to start here at 4, and I'm going to count back 4. And look where that ends up. It ends up at 0. So 4 plus -4 is 0, and I'm sure you already noticed that 4 and -4 are opposite numbers, and they are called 0 pairs. Okay, so let's look at one more problem and see how that goes. So we have, let's do -7 plus 7. We know they're opposites because -7 is opposite of 7. And we're going to follow the same rule. We're going to start at 0. And it says our first term is -7, so I'm going to go all the way to -7. And it says my second term is +7. It's a +7, so I'm going to go to the right 7 times. And that's going to put me right back at 0. So the solution to -7 plus 7 is 0, and that's called additive inverse. Two numbers to 0, and these two numbers right here are called 0 pairs because they're opposites. So I thank you for your time and have a good day.